Welcome to this week's episode of Shop Talk Podcast with your host, Burke Sanders. This week I want to do things a little different. I want to take you on a journey as I create, build, and model out, and then subsequently print and create a design from start to finish. And so to start this off, I want to tell a little bit of a backstory. My kids love to paint these things called minifigures, and I don't know if any of you know what these are, but these come from different games, tabletop games that you would play with dice, kind of around a dinner table with your family or your friends. Dungeons and Dragons comes to mind. Something called Warhammer comes to mind. I've personally never played any of these games. As fun as that sounds, I've just never been around people that like to play them. However, my kids love to do artsy stuff, and painting these minifigures seems to be a good, fun activity that we can do together as a family, the age that they're at. And so the neat thing is, if you've ever been into 3D printing, especially resin 3D printing, you've probably printed out a lot of trinkets for your kids. And these little minifigures are great because I don't know if you've ever priced these, but they're prohibitively expensive to let a kid paint 10 to 20 of them in a setting. You wouldn't want to do that to your wallet if you were to buy those from a game store. However, with the 3D technology, or with the printing technology we have now with 3D printers, I can print a dozen of these at a time for pennies on the dollar of what it would cost to buy these at, say, a game shop. And so I am really grateful that people out there have designed these and put them out there for us to use in this regard. I have no problem supporting creators who put their work out there. And in fact, there's been a few models we have bought. But kind of as a way to give back to the community, I wanted to make this podcast today because one of the problems I've run into with these minifigures is when my kids are painting them, or even when I'm painting them with them, there's been a few of them that I really enjoy and want to save and display, and honestly, they kind of pile up, and so you need something to do with all these because they're not overly fragile, but they are a little bit fragile, and so you'd like to have somewhere to keep them. And after scouring the internet for a while, I've not found a great storage solution that can easily be 3D printed or made in your home workshop. And so we're going to try to address that today. If you'll follow me over to my computer real quick, I'll show you the choices that are out there and where their shortfalls are, and then also the parts I like. And we're going to try to combine those all together and get something out there that I can give to the community as a way to give back to everyone who has, one, supported me on this channel, two, who has made all these 3D printing files for free. I'd like to give my files out for free as well, in hopes that we just grow this community. So with that, follow me over to the computer real quick. Okay, so the first file I found is by a creator called Mystic Realm, and I really actually think this is a great system, and so we're going to actually use this as a foundation for what we create. It's called this V1 display rack here, and as you can see in this picture here, if I zoom in, there's basically a rack system that has trays that can slide in and out, and you can stack these trays and the bases for each tray, or the shelf as they call it, up to different heights depending on the size of the column you put in. The great parts about this design, and I will show you, is that it's easy to get your minis out. So you have a tray that sits into a shelf. The tray can simply come out, and then you can have your minis there to paint or to play with. The problem with this one specific design, and something I would like to fix, is when you're displaying it, there's no catch for this shelf. So if it even tilts forward slightly, the shelf slides out. And so because of how long it can take to paint one of these minifigures. I didn't like that part of the design, and so we will try to fix that today with what we build, so that that's not an issue. The second issue I had with this design is that through my research, a standard minifigure base is 1 inch. And so grabbing one of these at random and taking a set of calipers here, we'll see. I doubt you can see this, but I'll try. The base on this mini is 0.96 inches, so it's under an inch, and an inch is standard according to my research. The holes on this tray are great, but I don't really see the purpose because the minis don't fit into the holes, and so again, it doesn't add any lateral support for the mini. And so I quickly, just to test this theory, printed one with larger holes, and the minis can sit down into these holes, and you get a lot more support. Let me find one that has some weight. You get a lot more lateral support with these versus the ones that don't, because there is so if we go upwards at the same time, you lose support there, and these can go a lot further before they lose support. And the other thing that's great about these is that when they demonstrated them, they used a magnetic base on these, because most minis have a hollow bottom that you can put some kind of metal or magnet in to make playing with them or whatever you do, weighting them down so they don't tip over, easier. And so I bought a pack of these 4x6 magnets, which are the standard easy to buy sizes. And you know, they were using, it looked like an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and so I'm not sure why, but the design they have does not fit a standard 4x6 pre-cut magnetic sheet to make it simple and fast. It's actually a little bit too big, and so you would have to cut it. And you know, in the big scheme of things, that's not a big deal. But if you want to try to save time and streamline, and if it's something I want to build to give back to the community, I actually want it to be super simple for people to build and make. And so I'm going to fix that issue as well, so that you can just buy a standard magnet and have it fit into or on the bottom of this, which is what I've done here with this test piece I built. And my holes are a little bit oversized. I think I designed these at 1.1 inch, which I did, which looks a little funny, and it's a little bit big. So I'll shrink that down when we design the final one. The other thing I bought and wanted to incorporate is these pre-sized round magnets for the miniature bases. So these are 0.8 inches. So these should fit in most standard minifigure bases that you're able to print. Here's a hollow one that just drops down in there. It's got sticky on it already. So by combining this technique with a magnet technique and a hole that's big enough, it actually creates a lot of support for these minifigures, where you can actually invert all the way upside down, and you're not going to get near as many damaged figures, and you're not going to make as much of a mess. And I think it's just going to make the whole storage system a lot more efficient and better to use for you guys. Okay. The final issue I've had with this design, and I know I'm finding a lot of issues with it. I think it's great, and I'm super grateful to, let's see, what was their name? Mystic Realm, for making this, because it really is a great idea. These trays are supposed to fit on to the base like this. I mean, they have holes, they snap in, and the problem is they designed it with such tight tolerances that I have broken quite a few of these shelves trying to just get this thing put together. And so as you can see here, these pieces have broke, and the tolerances even on the columns are so tight that it really takes a lot of force to get them on there, which makes modifying this actually a pretty big struggle, and so it ends up being actually a frustrating process instead of a fun process. And I'm a grown man and I have trouble with it, so if my kids ever wanted to kind of build this and take it apart and put it together like Legos, it's not going to be a really great design for them. So we're going to see if we can also fix that. Otherwise, this design is great. I'm going to use it as a base, as kind of like a way that we can move forward with this. And then let's go back over to the computer and I'll show you some other designs that I've really liked, that I think we can use. Oh, and yeah, here is where I'm just showing that I researched the base sizes for the hole cutouts. So the other, when you look up storage displays for minifigures, the one that comes up most is called the Crystal Fortress. And so I can't print acrylic or glass or whatever. It's probably acrylic this is made of. I haven't put too much effort into seeing what it is. But what I notice that is really good is that it has a way to transport the case so that your minis are safe when you move it around. So we'll see if we can incorporate that. The design by Mystic Realm actually has in its columns a way to, I'm assuming, insert plexiglass or glass into these columns so that you could actually put a protective plexiglass or plastic sheet in between each layer. So we'll try to keep that in there so that we can at least make it similar to one of the more popular designs, which is this Crystal Fortress. The final storage solution that I found that was highly sought after, at least in the mini community, was this thing called a Walhalla, and it is a wall-mounted minifigure display system. And one of my goals is to learn to 3D design better, and I don't think I am the caliber designer yet that I could create a system like this. However, I think we could do a lot to improve the aesthetics of Mystic Realms 3D miniature or 3D mini of Mystic Realms minifigure display tower, so that it had more of the characteristics of this Walhalla system. So with that, I say we head on over to our 3D creating software and give this a go. And just to keep it simple for you guys so that you can follow along and do this stuff, I'm actually using all free software that you can download and use right now on your home computer, and you don't have to pay any money at all. So the two softwares I will be using are Tinkercad, and we will also use a desktop software called Autodesk Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is a much more advanced software that you could probably do this whole job in, but I am still learning this software and probably not qualified to do the work there. It's too difficult for me at the moment. I'm still learning it. I'll get there. But Tinkercad, which is also free, is super user-friendly, and I think anybody can pick it up day one and kind of build something. So I started out with a lot of practice. We're actually going to start all the way from scratch. I just want to show you guys kind of in my head what my thought process is going into this. So I redesigned a lot of the parts of Mystic Realms Tower. So started out just trying to recreate the thing almost exactly in Tinkercad. And once I'd gotten a pretty solid version of what they had, I started modifying it. So my goal here is going to be to build a more decorative base with multiple shelves that have true 1-inch 2-inch, and 3-inch holes, maybe 4-inch hole for accurately sized minifigures that can fit a 4x8 sheet magnet underneath. So this all led up to where we're going now. So let's get out of here, however I do that, and we will start a new project. All right, so we're going to click Create here in Tinkercad, and we're going to do a 3D design today. And so my camera work is going to go back and forth a little bit here, so you'll just have to follow along with me. The first thing I want to accomplish is to make sure that we can make this a simple thing for everybody to put together who can just order some magnet sheets on Amazon and then slap it on and have a good working system. So we're going to take our calipers here and we're going to measure this magnet sheet real quick. So this magnet sheet, according to the paper that came with it, is 4 by 6 inches, and it's a 20 mil thickness magnet. So according to my calipers, this magnetic sheet is 6.02 inches wide. All right. So we will go here and we will drag a cube onto our workspace. And we're going to zoom in a bit. We're going to click on this corner piece and we're going to change the width to 6.1. And that's going to give us a little bit of play in the width so that our magnet sheet will fit. And we'll take the other measurement, which is, all right, on with me guys, 3.99. So again, just to build in a little bit of a buffer, we're going to go with 4.1 inches. I'm just kidding. I don't know what that is. Go away. All right, we're dragging that note away because I don't know how to delete it. 4.1 inches. There. All right, so now we have a block that is roughly the size of our magnet plus a little bit of margin of error. Okay. So that is going to be the size that we can actually use to put our holes on. Okay, and then we need to also add in the area of the shelf that it is going to sit in. So just roughly looking at the design that was made by Crystal Fortress, I can tell you that that shelf is roughly a little over 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to make, looks like it's 0.3 inches. Fair enough. Okay, so that is 0.3 inches. So we are going to duplicate this. I hit Control-C, Control-V. That's going to give us an exact copy. And so we are going to add 0.3 inches. Make sure I'm on inches. Okay. I'm going to add 0.3 inches to this design on both faces. Okay, so we're at 6.1. We're going to go to 6.4. And now we are at 4.1, and we're going to go to 4.4. Look there. Okay. And finally, since their design is actually so good, we're going to take our calipers again, and we're going to measure the thickness. So they are at 0.15 inches thick on. Ooh, the shelf is thin AF. Okay. All right, so the body of it is at 0.15, and the shelf is at half that at 0.7. It's actually 0.14 and 0.7. So the body is twice the thickness of the shelf portion, which is exactly what I would expect. Okay. So from there, we will take those measurements, and since this is the body, and I think it's a great thickness. It does bow a little bit, so instead of leaving it exactly where it's at, we're going to make it, what did I say? It was 0.14. We're just going to make that 0.16 to make it a nice even number. 0.16 inches. All right, and that is the appropriate thickness of the body. And so now we're going to take half of 0.6. We're going to change this to what half of 0.6 is. So, or half of, we're going to take half of 0.16, which is going to be 0.08. That's perfect. Okay. Let's change the color of these because this red is a little bit much. Just make it gray. Okay. And so now we have the portion that is going to hold the minis. And then we have the shelf portion that will be the bordering shelf there. And so one thing I've just realized I've done that's incorrect is I've only put one side of the overhang on. So I actually need to double the width. I need to actually add another 0.3 to the width. So that's going to be 6.4, 6.5, 6, 7. So we're going to go 6.7 inches. And that will take us to the appropriate size for this shelf. Okay, that will work. I'm not going to merge these yet. Actually, I will. So just to show you. So I'm going to hit Control C, Control V. We're going to copy both of them. Control C, Control V. Okay, we've got an extra copy just so I can kind of show you guys what the process would be. We just want to keep our originals though. So we would take both of those, and I'm actually going to make them a different color so you can follow along easier. So you've got the brown portion, which will be where your minifigures stay, and the gray portion, which will eventually be the overhang for the shelf. So we're going to use this button that's the align. We want it to align in the center. And then we actually want it to align on this front wall here because that will be, we want that part to be flush together. And the back part we want an overhang. So it's a shelf on 3 sides. And the reason we do 3 sides is because that lets the tray slide in and out freely. Okay, so that is where we are there. Typically at this point you would select both, you would click merge, and they would become a solid shape. And just like that you would have a, what did they call it? A tray. You would have your first tray, but we don't have any holes or anything like that in there, so we are going to keep going with this design. Okay, so we actually want to find a way to lock this tray in while we're using it. So let's go ahead and work on doing that now. So we need to build the shelf for this tray. Okay, so the shelf obviously is going to have the same overhang for the tray at 0.3 inches, which is correct. And then the actual tray body, which I am not sure where they got these numbers from, is 0.64 inches. So that we may have to modify, but it will work for now. So, all right, fair enough. Okay, so let's go back over here. I'm going to separate these two out. So our opposite side, we need to copy this. And we want to widen it again by 0.3 on both sides and 0.3 on the width. So this would be 4.7. And this is going to be 7.3. So now this shelf should sit in here perfectly like this. Yes. Yes. Ha. Okay. So we're going to leave the bodies gray. And we're going to change this color just so we know what we're working with to a different color. Let's make these blue. And this is going to get deleted so I have a clean workspace. And now we're going to duplicate this one and turn it to a different color blue. And so remember, I said the width of their tray was 0.65, 0.53. Okay, they just came up with some random numbers. We're going to go with a ½ inch extra on this for everything because I'm not sure what we're going to end up doing here in the end of it. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. So we're going to make this the same as the other one real quick. 4.7. And then this was 7.3. All right, so those are the same. So now we need to make it slightly larger to be the exterior of it. So we're going to add a ½ inch this way. So 5.2. And then we're going to add 1 inch, so it'll be ½ inch on either side, which will be 8.3. And now we have the shelf that would slide into. And I know that doesn't look like it, but I will go ahead and quickly just show you how this is going to work. So let's see, this will be like that. So we want to make this the inverse of that shelf. So why are those thicknesses not the same? What's the thickness of this one? 0.16. Okay, we're making this thicker. No, we're not. Just kidding. 0.8. We're going to make, ooh, we're going to make this thicker. 0.16. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now you can kind of see what we're shooting for. So we need this to line up. So we're going to line it up center. We're going to line it up with the front edge. And did I do that correctly? Sure I did not. Hold on, guys. I'm lost. I've done something dumb. No, I haven't. Okay. Okay, so yes, we need to duplicate this part. Duplicate this part. We are going to take that part out of this part. And this part, actually. Okay, we'll start here. So we're going to merge these after we line them up. That's not the right one. Let's line them up so they are aligned on the front edge. Let's center them. And we're going to turn this. So if you change it to a whole, that means it's going to subtract. So we're going to turn these to a whole. We're going to merge them, and that cuts that away. So now we have our shelf overlap. That's going to be the part that our shelf sits on. And that's perfect. And so now we need to cut out this portion of the shelf here. And probably the easiest way to do that is going to be to use this piece here. So let's set this aside. Set this aside. Take this. I'm actually going to copy that so I don't lose the original. And then we're going to make it a lot thicker. Okay. Doesn't really matter how thick because we're just using it to cut out something. So we'll change it to a subtraction. And we will, again, line these two up. We line center, line front, and then we're going to merge. Okay. So now we have what's going to eventually be our shelf. Perfect. And so these two we will move over here. And let's make these offset colors just a little bit too, so we can see how they like to sit. So eventually this will sit upside down into here. Perfect, right? Yes. So now we need to create a system that will hold this in when it sits there. So I'm thinking just extend this slightly and not have the cutout drop there. So in order to do that, what's going to be the easiest way? Let's duplicate this and see if maybe we can use this. Why are these different heights? I don't understand. They're not. Okay. Perfect. So yes, we want to cut that out just like that. So I'm going to do this number. We're going to hit Control C, Control V. I'll put that there. We're going to line these two up now. Midline. Perfect. I'm going to make this one taller just because why not? We're going to move these out of the way because I don't want to accidentally cut part of that. This is going to be a cutter. And actually, I want to duplicate this. And we're going to line this up like so. So what I'm trying to do is get this to sit right on the edge of that. And so I can't do it by snapping to the grid, so we're going to change how much we snap each time till we get it almost perfect. I'm okay to lose a little bit of width there, but I don't want to lose much. So that's how we want it. We're going to widen it so that it'll cut out the rest. We're going to lengthen it so it'll cut out that. And we have the two portions that we want to keep, I believe. All right, let us see how that works. We are going to merge. Nice. Okay, that worked. Cool. So now we're going to line these up. What is that nonsense? All right, all right, all right. All right, I've changed my mind. I'm going to do it a different way. So what is the thickness of this? 0.16. 0.16. Cool. All right, just kind of working, guys, because I'm not a pro at this. I'm going to line these up on that back edge because that should work. All right, cool. We got an overhang that seems reasonable. I don't need that right now, but I guess I do a little bit. All right, you know what? We're going to have to merge these. So we're going to do there, do there, and we're going to do Control C, Control V. We're going to move an extra copy over here in case we need those for reference. Then we're going to merge these two to make a solid object. Now I can use that solid object to line this one up without it getting off kilter there. So for this portion, we are going to, again, go to the line up tool. We're going to line it up on this back edge. All right, so we want to get out of that. Do it that way. I actually want to widen it so that it's roughly the same width as this part here. And then we're going to shorten it up so that it's visually just looks okay. We're going to hit Control C, Control V, move this bad boy over here. Line it up again. All right, let's go ahead and merge this side. Perfect. Now we can use this to align these two to this angle. we're going to see there. Oops. Not sure why it gave me all of them. All right, we're going to merge these. Okay, we're going to change the color back to blue. All right, so now we have our shelf that will hold our tray. Beautiful. All right, and I just thought that since we want tolerances to be not ridiculous, that we are going to, you can actually ungroup these. So you click ungroup, keep clicking ungroup, and it will ungroup all of this. I didn't mean to go that far. There, okay. So I actually want this blue portion to be a little bit thinner on this side, and this side for tolerance reasons. So actually I'm going to do ungroup, and we are going to increase the thickness or the width of this right here. So we're going to go with 8.4, which will give us 0.05 tolerance clearance. What was it? So we only need 4.45. And then 6.5. 6.55. There. Okay. So let's do this again. We will center, line them front edge. We will merge. Perfect. And we'll bring this back here. Why are you not the same as you should be? Stupid thing. Okay. I don't know what happened there, but we're going to fix it again. Okay, so you need to add 0.5. So this is going to be 4.45. This is going to be 6.8. Perfect. We're going to line them to the center, to the front, and then we are going to merge. Perfect. Beautiful. Okay. All right, we're going to take these two. We're going to align. Oh, gosh dang it. Take these two here. We're going to align them to front, center. We're going to merge. And then we are going to add back our front end caps here. tube. That's the button I was looking for. All right. Those look fairly good. We are going to add, no, we're not. Wish there was a way to make these so that the faces touched perfectly. I don't know how to do that, so. All right. See, when it has these lines, that means that there's a gap, and it's not going to print well if that's the case. So we need to fix that gap. Problem is, I don't want to lose my clearance. So we're just going to use some very professional modeling skills here to line these up manually. Beautiful. All right. I'm going to do this. Oh my goodness. Do the same thing with the width. All right, let's try that again. I'm going to copy it before we do it so we can add it to the other side. Ah, no line. Ha ha ha. Beautiful. All right, that is going to print well. We're going to get rid of that bad boy because this one should be the correct size. And we're going to come over here and do the same thing. We're going to change the color so I can actually see. All right, tell you what, that part is lined. Oh, just kidding. Cool. And merge. Boom, done. All right, cool. All right, let's get rid of this scrap. All right, so now we have a shelf and a tray with a little bit of play so that it should slide in and out fairly easily. Nice. Okay. I like it. We got play front to back, and we have, do we have play front to back? Yes. A little bit of play front to back. plenty of play front to back, and most likely plenty of play side to side. We should have more play side to side because I gave it double the tolerances, which oversight on my part, but it shouldn't be too big a deal moving forward. Okay, so now we have the trays and the shelves. So let's go ahead and actually copy these, and we will go ahead and actually make a shelf. So we are going to align like so. That will fit just fine. Merge. Perfect. So yeah. Let's hit Control C, Control V. There's an extra shelf. And we'll just do a quick test fit. So we'll rotate this 180. Beautiful. And that should just sit in there like so. Right on. I like it. All right, my guys. That is the shelf and the rack done. So we'll set those aside. And so those, unfortunately, I can't make super decorative, but we can work on the base now. So we'll set these aside. This is an extra part design of the shelf, and this is an extra, oh man, this is an extra part of that. Okay. So, ooh, that was a lot, guys. All right. This is going to be a stupid long podcast. The base is 5.8 inches wide. I don't understand. Where do y'all come up with these numbers? Don't understand. Okay. We're actually not going to use that. So we are going to take a copy of this. We are going to ungroup it. Take out the parts we don't want, which will be this, this, there. So now we have a base that looks similar in shape to that. Perfect. So now I want to take you through how to make it ornate. And on Thingiverse, I found a, let me get to my desktop. I found a column called the Atlas column. And I'll open this up in my 3D printer slicer real quick so you can see. It is a column. It looks like Atlas from the Greek mythology holding up a pillar. Cool, yeah. So we're going to use that as our pillar. It can be cool. And so if we go back to Tinkercad, we're going to import. We're going to click Choose File. We're going to choose Atlas column. We're going to click Open. It's going to give us a thing that says the shape is too complex, which that sucks, but okay, easy enough fix. So we're going to open up Autodesk Fusion 360, or I guess a second copy of it. We are going to insert, we're going to insert a mesh, and then from there we're just going to select our column. So here is our column. Nothing too fancy. And we want to reduce the mesh. So, what did I just click on? Where did I go away? Okay, I don't know why that's saying plastic, but whatever. Then we want to go to not edit feature. Go away. We want to, is it edit feature? I don't know. Well, I've forgotten. Edit feature, yep, modify, and then we want to go to reduce up here. So it's going to say, what percentage of reduction do you want? I'll leave all these settings the same. I'm sure maybe you could get better. I'm going to use 25%. We're going to have to select the item. So I'm going to go over here, click on Atlas column. It says I've got one item selected, and all we have to do is click OK. It is working on it. And now it has completed the reduced mesh column. So in order to export this so that we can now use it, I have to finish editing. We are going to right click on the column and we're going to click here Save as Mesh. This is going to let us select our format, and since we're using STL, we want to export it as an STL. I honestly don't have a clue what the difference between these two are, but I leave it as binary and it works okay for me. Leave the unit type and what the file was originally, and we're going to click OK. It's going to let us rename it, pick where we want to save it. It's on my desktop, that's fine, and it's saving it as an STL. Perfect. So now we have our edited file here. And just to show you, not only does it reduce faces, but this is 19.6 megabytes, this is 4.98 megabytes. So it also decreases it in file size as well. So if you were having a file size issue, this would be a way to correct that. So now that we have it reduced, let's try to import it again to see if that will work. We're going to click on Atlas column reduced, click open. And we're going to have to reduce the scale because I'm dumb. Let's just make it 25%. That's fine. It's really big for some reason on here. While that's importing, I'm just going to check my camera, make sure it's still recording. That would be sucky. Okay, we are totally still recording. I am still waiting on that to import. So while we are doing, now I can't really move forward with that. Well, actually what we can do is we can work on making these what we need them to be. So we have our shelves. So we want a couple different shelves. So we're going to Control C, Control V, Control V. It's going to be our 1 inch shelf, 2 inch shelf, and 3 inch shelves. And let me look. I have quite a few minis that are printed this size. I just want to see what size they are. 1.45. So why don't we start with a 1, a 1.5, and a 2 inch hole. So we're going to click on this cylinder. And what I want to do is I want to make it have as many sides as this program will let me because it'll make it smoother. Don't care about a bevel because we're just going to use this as a subtraction piece. And then we're going to drag it over here, and we want to make sure this is a 1 by 1 inch cylinder, and it starts off as that, so that's perfect. We're actually going to add a little bit of play, so we're going to make it 1.05. 1.05. Okay, so now we just need to copy these. We are going to see how many we can fit on here. Okay, so that's 3 that way. All right, I think we can do 3 by 4. That looks okay to me. So now we just need to work on getting them lined up. So we'll take away these extras. And what we're going to do is just highlight the ones that we want to line up. We're going to click the line up thing, and we're going to click boom. Look at there. They are lined up. But they are not spaced correctly. So, oops. Let's move this. And I'm sure there's a good way to do this, but I don't know how to do it. So we're just going to have to adjust the spacing using the tiles on the bottom. And what I like to do is set my grids to snap in 1/2 inch sections when I'm trying to do this, or maybe even let's do 1/4 inch, and we'll put a gap of roughly a 1/4 inch between them. All right, so we've got them all lined up on this line, and they're all overlapping by just a little bit. So as we can see here, they are still fitting on this sheet fairly well. So what I like to do is click on one and use my arrow key over one. Use my arrow key over one. And that is going to space them so that they are evenly spaced there. That looks okay as far as on the sheet. And so what I'll do then is select all 3. We'll go back over here to the lineup. We'll just make sure they're lined up this direction, which they are. Okay. And so instead of subtracting them one at a time, we're going to merge. We're going to group them. Just going to basically make them stay together as one shape. See? We're going to do that same process, except we're going to do it 4 wide. So we're going to copy this 4 times. And we're going to do the same process. We're going to move this out of the way for a second. Select all of them. Line them up. Line them up. And we're going to pick one. We're going to click over. All right, so we are overlapped a little bit. We're just using this as a rough reference. And we're going to click this one. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1. And there we have even spacing, but we still have some room to play. So we're going to do 1, 2, 1, 1. 1, 1, 1. All right. Well, yeah. Anyhow, you get the idea. And that looks like it lines up pretty well on there. Turn this back off so we have more exact control. I would be happy with that. That would fit 12 1-inch minifigures per shelf. All right, guys. Sorry, my other camera died. I've got a new microphone recording system, so I I'm trying to figure that out, and when the battery died on that, it turned my camera off. So I've still got the screen recording of me building the tower, so I'm just going to voice over this. So I will talk you through what I'm doing as it's happening on the screen. The recording was getting a little long anyhow, so I'm going to actually speed up the editing here so we can not make this a 2-hour podcast. And hopefully you guys will still get what you need to get from it. So right now on screen you can see I'm building the 1-inch holes for the minifigure tray. I've just used four cylinders and 3 rows to make 12 1-inch holes for the minifigures to fit through. What I'm doing now is taking the Atlas figure that we edited earlier, and I'm aligning it with these shelves so that we can make the base. It's kind of a finicky process to get it lined up. The reason I'm doing this is I want to design it in such a way that we can stack multiple trays on top of this, but I also want the bottom to not have any overhangs and to be a smooth piece on the sides. Because I'm voicing this over, I can tell you that in retrospect, the figure of Atlas, while it looks really good, his left arm sticks out past the edge of the base, and so one of the design ideas I had in my head was to make it so that this would be able to fit multiple side by side. So in future episodes we'll have to figure out a way to correct that. What I'm doing right now is just making sure the top of this statue is smooth, and then I'm also putting a block inside of it to make sure that there is no hollow spaces there, because I didn't create that model, so I wasn't sure what the interior of it looked like. The piece right here is going to be it's going to be kind of like a insert for the columns as I am stacking more and more layers on one another. You'll see once we get a little bit further how those line up and how they work. So I've duplicated the piece now that I've built it into 4 pieces. I'm getting it lined up onto the base here. I just want it to look really good when we print it, so that's what we're doing. I've made a duplicate copy of everything just so we have extra. And we are lining these up manually with the trays here so that the trays line up perfectly with the top of the Atlas columns. And this is just tedious work, but it's got to be done to ensure that they stack evenly. And here what I'm doing is building the base of the bottom platform. This does a few things. This adds stability and weight to the bottom so that it is more sturdy. I suppose you could actually build it without this, but I like the aesthetic of it having a base here. And now we are adding the Atlas figures to the top of that base. They are merged, so they will stay perfectly aligned with one another. So now we can merge all of those together. And because these are such complex figures, this process actually takes a while for them to fully merge. That's why they haven't changed color yet. Okay, so here we are lining up the tray with the base. And I was planning to use this column as the column that went on subsequent layers. However, as you'll see here in a minute, when I import it, the file is actually, well, I think I have to edit it again. Yeah, the file is actually broken, so when I put the file in, it did not look good. So I tried to find a new one within Tinkercad's files, but I didn't find one. And so I've decided just to manually build a column here. And I'm just testing out the fit of the base on my printer bed to see if it'll work. So here we're designing the next column. I just started off with a cylinder. Kind of like the look of that. Tried to find a square to fit the base. Here I'm aligning them. Just changing sliders to see if I can get a look that I like better. I'm just testing different shapes here to try to make the column look more natural as we design it, to give it a more progressive slope as it goes up. And I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So what I do here is duplicate it, line them up, and then I merge them, adjust the height, and we have a pretty standard size column. I'm inserting another pin on the top, and then I put a pin on the bottom and use it to hollow out the hole, and I actually oversize this pin so that they fit together nicely. And the goal here was to make multiple sizes, so I made a couple blocks and stretched the columns to be that exact size. That's not going to be what we end up doing permanently, but for the purpose of this today, I ended up just going one size because I did not want to make this take any longer. So here I'm actually printing the first set, and I will print the next few sets, and then I will cut back over to this camera once everything's finished, and we'll look at it live together. So I'll be right back with you with that. All right, so it's actually a couple days later. I've got the base here printed. It turned out great. I did have to use supports just for the perimeters of the top of these Atlas columns. Didn't take much. They came off nicely. One corner did separate on here. I'm not sure what that's about. You can kind of see it there, probably not from that far away, but I will show a zoomed in picture here before too long. It's most likely just because of the filament I was using. I think I had a wet roll of PETG that I printed this base with. I switched over to Hyper PLA after the base. I was really just trying to get rid of that roll, and I think maybe that caused a few defects here. So I just want to show you guys kind of how it looks assembled. So what you do is you take the base here, and you will add a shelf to the top of the base, and then you will add 4 columns. And in hindsight, these should have been indexed somehow. We can take care of that. Probably next week I'll actually continue this same episode as part 2, just to get this design tidied up so that it's in a better place to release to everybody. So as you can see here, we can just keep stacking shelves. And sorry, it's so hard to do this stuff on camera. All right, and here you can see I've switched filaments. Obviously this will be painted when it's all said and done. However, this whole tower up to this point is simply just a test tower, so this is all probably going to get reprinted anyhow. But I did want to put a good bit of it together just to test stability once it was all put together. So as you can see, it's fairly stable. Has a little bit of shake to it, but once you put the trays into there, it's not so loose. I did not have time to put the magnets on the bottom of all these trays. Some of the figures have magnets already, as you can see here. Those 2 do not, but these I was able to get magnets in, and the minifigures hold on there very well. I do have a magnetic sheet on the bottom here. I wish I would have bought a different brand. that had a different polarity, but I'm going to research into that before next week to see what different solutions we can have, so that the sticky side was the side that was the correct polarity, or was the incorrect polarity to stick to these magnets for the base of the minis, so they did not want to stick to the underside of the magnet, so they only wanted to stick to the top. So these are actually just glued to these trays. I may be able to put a rare earth magnet on the bottom of the minis and solve that problem, but I do want to look into that because I'm not sure if I made that up in my head or that's an actual thing. So I've got some sitting around here. I'll pull those out and we'll see if that works next week. So as you can see here, the trays simply slide in just like this and sit into place. And if I might say so myself, they look great. Put your minis on and you can move on to the next tray. I did go ahead and print a 1.5 inch base tray so that I could fit 1.5 inch minifigures on this tray. And eventually we'll have 1.5, 1.5, 2, 3, and maybe even a 4 inch if I can find a way to make that fit. And this way this will fit pretty much any base of any minifigure you have. So as you can see there, the 1.5 inch bases work really well. Here are some more trays, just for a visual for you guys at how awesome this really looks. And I will just keep filling it up and we will go all the way. And again, all these unpainted minis don't have magnets yet because I'm not sure if they'll be a keeper or not, because sometimes kids just blob paint on them and I don't want to keep all the junk ones, just the nice ones that they're proud of. And so here is our completed tower, at least from this week's podcast episode. I know it's a few days later, but it takes time to print. And as you can see, it's very sturdy. It doesn't sag much. I think the trays themselves could use a little reinforcement over time. I could see them starting to sag. But we'll just have to wait and see how they hold up. I think they'll be good for quite a while. And if they do sag, it'll be very minimal. But I mean, I can pick it up one-handed, move it around. It's pretty stable. The goal for next week, I think, when we continue this podcast, is we need to find a way to build a roof to attach this. I would like to find a way to index these columns so they don't slide around. One of the goals we were trying to meet this week was to leave it so that you could insert plexiglass in the sides and the back here. So I will need to modify the columns so that they will be able to fit that. But now that we're here talking about that, I'm not sure how I will implement that on the base and make it look correct. So we may hold off on that until version 2. And we'll just see. The other thing I would like to do is potentially add some holes in the base here to somehow run a 1-inch strap up and over the top so that eventually we can add a handle so that this can be carried in some sort of way so that you're not having to carry it from the base here. I mean, it's stable, but I don't think that's ideal, and I think it would look much better with some type of top that came up like this, maybe a guard that was holding a rod across them. I'll see what kind of files I can find before next week when we finish this up. So anyhow, guys, if you watch this, if you like this little tower and you want me to continue on past next week, well, first, be sure to check next week when we finish up version 1.0. But if it's something you like, go download it, print it off, and then shoot me a message and tell me what things you like, what you don't like, what we can change, and we'll try to keep this a free file that we can give out to the community that we can keep upgrading. I will, of course, post links down below for the magnets in this video and also in the next one, so that if you decide you do want to build this, you can buy the correct magnets that I used here. And if we find that the rare earth magnets work better than these 1-inch disc magnets that are on the bottom, then I will go ahead and link those as well. All right, guys, I'm really thrilled with this. I think it turned out great. I actually really like this style of podcast where we actually just get on here and we build something together. I have a lot of fun doing stuff on the fly, on the spot, where I kind of just get to make stuff up as I go. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Tune in next week, guys, because we're going to finish this thing up. I will tell you where I'm putting the files, and then you can go download them, check them out yourself, and hopefully print them. The one other thing I just wanted to mention real quick is that this is designed to fit on my large format FDM printer. It's a 300 by 300 by 300 bed, but it can probably fit on most of your smaller 250 by 250 beds. But we'll have to check that out and see. If we need to modify it to make it slightly shorter, we actually have room on the sides of these trays that we could make this not as wide. If that seems to be something the community wanted, I'd be happy to do that for you guys. All right, next week, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Keep building cool stuff.